Okay, hello everyone. I am obviously not Philip Smith. He was leaving Djibouti early, and I'm trying to give the presentation on his behalf. It's about the routing table update and the aggregation report. That's a very old version. That's not what I sent. Where's Timpu? Yes. I can email what I have. So we are trying to start up the time machine to change from January to June. Okay, let me start. Okay, the history of this deaggregation report is that someone started in 1998 publishing a list of the 20 operators that had announced the most prefixes into the global routing table. And then during 1999, Philip Smith started as a hobby project to gather weekly the statistics and sent the report out, also broken down into the different RIR regions to see who is the networks, the list of networks that are deaggregating the most and sending the most prefixes per region. This is a sample, only a few days old. It shows that we are having close to 500,000 prefixes in the global BGP routing table. And as an important fact, we all know that these entries will have to be stored in most of the routers globally connected to the internet and in most providers that have several downstream AIS customers. It contains a lot of additional statistics information, like the factor that the amount of routing entries can be reduced by is around 2.5 at the moment. So from 496,000 entries, without loss of information, it could be reduced up to 194,000. And additional information would be, for instance, the length of AS paths, the maximum that is seen is 59 AS numbers in a path, which is caused, of course, by excessive prepending. And in the report, we can see the AS number that is doing that and how many times. For the Afrinic region specifically, we have, of course, a lot fewer routes contributed to the routing table by the African region. But it is noteworthy that we could reduce, as African originators of routing entries, by a factor of 4.5, from 12,000 to 2,600, the number of routes that we are announcing. This is the global list of the worst contributors to deaggregation. And this is a positive slide because the African ASs that are contributing to this are shown in green, and they are not on the list of the top contributors here. The distribution of the prefixes, we encourage everybody to have a look at it themselves. We see that /24s are the ones in the highest number, and it's still increasing, comparing here the May of last year and this month. This is a list of ASs that are sending out prefixes smaller than their allocations. And here we have Sudanese mobile telephone as one of the contributors. Okay. The next slide shows the increase of prefixes in the global routing table, where we are very close to hitting 500,000 at the moment. And the time scale shows the number of days since the beginning of the report in February 1999. So we see a steady increase in numbers, and it varies in rate. For instance, when the .com bubble burst in around 2000, there was a little slowdown in the increase in numbers of prefixes. The numbers of ASs is also steadily increasing, ASs that are seen in the global routing table, and there was one sharp step, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago, when the router that was collecting the data was upgraded to distinguish between the different 4-byte ASs. This one we can skip. Different prefix sizes that are announced are shown in a different number, and we see that /22s, which is not very much visible in this light blue, are the highest number currently as compared to others, which is partly because of the runout in APNIC. /24s announced as compared to the global number of routes announced. As it develops over time, we see it's always a bit more than half of the routes are /24s, which is mostly unnecessary. The address space that is announced, the number of IP addresses seen in the routing table, was always increasing, was accelerating, but as the number of IPs are limited and a certain fixed number is reserved or for multicast or other blocks or not announced by certain networks, this is going to flatten off in the near future. It started already. Whilst the AS numbers that we see in the global routing table are now from a range of 4 billion AS numbers, the 32-bit numbers, and they can still be increasing for a long time. The maximum AS path that is seen each week when the sample is taken is strangely increasing over time. That is mostly because some operators are prepending very much without noticing that prepending after some extent does not make much difference, because their providers will still send them traffic to the customer even when they prepend 15 times or 50 times. It should have been more constant, because whilst new ASNs networks are attached to the whole internet, also peering in between ASNs gets more dense all the time. Here we see how many IPs, how much IPv4 space is seen, and we've reached, is allocated to the AIS, and that has reached 100% now, a few years ago. So deaggregation is being reported in the website CIDR report, and it is not a challenge to the memory of most routers, but to a few of them. So network engineers are still encouraged to check the capabilities of their own hardware, but most should be capable of reaching at least 1 million entries, more than 1 million as compared to the 500,000 that we have now. At the same time, the rate of updates, of changes to the routing system is of more concern, because that takes time to process, and in many instances a new update comes even before the previous one was implemented. And here also the number of prefixes changing contributes to the number of the forwarding table entries that have to be updated in a relatively slow process in the routers. And when one link goes down for one provider and instead of one route gets changed, there will be 100, then a lot of time is taken up in the hardware. Okay, this is also parts of the report. The deaggregation factor is what we've seen, the ratio between the number of routes that are seen and the one that is actually necessary for achieving the same results currently in the routing table. And this ratio is very high in the Latin American region and also in Africa. And it's something that we should all try to reduce so that there is less unnecessary overhead, and the whole ecosystem of the internet providers will benefit from that. Here are the statistics. As just mentioned, the factor is 4.5 for Africa, over 5 for Latin America, and on the left-hand side, the number of prefixes seen in the global routing table from the various regions. Okay, here we see the development over time of the deaggregation factor, and we see the green one is Afrinic, and it has started only later than the other AIS, and now we've reached to a very high factor, so that, which means of course that instead of 12,000 routes like we saw in the first data slide, we could be doing well with 2,600 routes. This is the list of the worst deaggregators for the African region, sorted by the number of routes that could be saved, and we all should try to minimize the number of routes that are unnecessarily advertised, and I've also sent out an email today to get our sister company off this slide. It's important to aggregate to reduce the routing table, as I've explained, and to ease the aggregation of the whole system. There's another report that is being sent out weekly by Philip Smith. This is the statistic about which autonomous systems and which prefixes cause the most activity and change in the routing table, which is putting more load on the routers all the time. That is per AS number and per prefix. As mentioned, best practice is to aggregate the announced prefixes, and that is documented in this RIPE document 399. Okay, I would like to quickly add a few slides that I made myself on a similar topic, related topic, in addition to Philip's slides, which talk about a topic that has recently come up in the AFNOG mailing list, and it should be of concern to everybody. We have seen that some networks in Africa are advertising their prefixes not in the same way to all directions where they are announcing. If we, for instance, see a network A on the left-hand side, which has a peering either through an IXP or a direct connection with others, where they are announcing their prefixes, and they announce their prefixes to their upstreams and the global internet. As long as all of these announcements are the same, everything is fine, because the peers, like network B, have their mechanisms like BGP settings for local pref to prefer sending traffic over the cheap peering link. But if, as in this example, network A announces a more specific prefix to the global internet and nicely aggregates only to the peering connection, the providers will of course send the traffic over the connection to the customer network A, and that /20 route will be advertised to the global internet and as well over the other link to the network B. And then the network B will have a more specific route and send traffic to their peer through the global transit connection, and this is most likely undesired, and it should be fixed if it's undesired. So the most important thing that I want network engineers to remember is that they have to keep in mind the longest prefix, the most specific route will always win, whether it's BGP, whatever parameters, or any other protocol. And announcements should be the same to all directions, or at least anything that is sent anywhere outside their own network should also be advertised to any peer, so that the peers know the best connection and have no conflicting information to send traffic along the way. Thank you.
We're going to directly go to our next presentation. We'll start immediately, and then we'll take all the questions right after this presentation. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uba, and I work at Djibouti Telecom, and today I will present Djibouti IXP. I would like to, first of all, to thank AFNOG and AFRINIC decision makers for giving this opportunity to Djibouti to host this important event. So the side of the IXP I will talk about won't be very technical. It would be the strategy Djibouti has set to set an IXP in the region. So it won't be very technical, but strategy-wise. So I don't know how. Yeah, it's going to be around 3 points, and why we had this strategy to set an IXP here. What was the effort and the assets Djibouti Telecom developed to have a good IXP, and then I'll present the different steps to build and set up the IXP in Djibouti. So first of all, we all know that high international bandwidth cost when exchanging domestic and regional traffic is very high. And we all know also that the latency is really high when regional or local traffic is sent overseas and comes back between POPs. In terms of QoS, the goal is to keep the traffic through its shortest path with the minimum latency as much as possible. So, and then there is the growing demand in internet bandwidth with the new submarine cable serving East Africa coastlines countries today. So the strategy, or I would say the best IXP is made of a combination of submarine fibers and terrestrial connections. So that was the first step Djibouti has taken. So we have I would say Djibouti Telecom is the leading operator on submarine cable diversity in the region. We have 5 submarine cables, transcontinental actually, and 2 upcoming ones in 2016, and the other one is, I don't know, the Arab state. And today Djibouti is, I would say Djibouti is the leading strategy hub connecting Europe, the Middle East, and Asia regions with Africa. And as of in the region, we have direct connectivity with the neighboring countries, such as Ethiopia, Somalia, and Yemen. We have true fiber optics of each 10 gig with Ethiopia. And with Somalia, we have 1 terrestrial cable, and as well, we connect Somali operators through microwave also. And the next, the second phase was to have diverse Tier 1 IP nodes. So Djibouti had some strategic partnership with Telecom Italia Sparkle since 2010, and with Level 3 2012, and it's in the same year with Saudi Telecom. And even in the same momentum, we established a data center in Djibouti in order to boost the peering activities and attract major internet actors, and we developed a Tier 3 data center in the middle of our old cables. So when was this launched? It was launched, the IXP in Djibouti was launched in 2014 at the Djibouti data center facilities. And this will allow customers, carriers, ISPs, and others to keep local traffic in East Africa local by reducing the need to exchange traffic at all the peering points outside of the region. And at the same time, it will reduce the latency. It will be, there is a faster connectivity and lower cost for network operators and internet users in East Africa. So what is the benefits or advantages of the Djibouti data center ecosystem? As I said again, it is a Tier 3 carrier neutral data center. There is a meet me room for simple and cost-effective cross-connects to others in the DDC. There is a co-location and smart hands support. Every customer would access to cable head and will have a cross-connect to any 5 submarine cables and the backhaul. And this, and we have like all new customers will have a reduced tariff on the IXC. So the strategy Djibouti want to follow after this is, of course, the objective being to improve local internet performance efficiency, resilience and cost by keeping local and regional traffic local. We aim to develop this IXP in 3 phases. The first phase is to connect regionally, a regional connection. So Djibouti is already connected by fiber with Yemen, Ethiopia, and Somalia. So that traffic will be aggregated, and it's something that will be done in the first phase. The second phase is to connect to Djibouti IXP with the existing IXP in East Africa, such as the Kenyan IXP, I don't see that. Tanzania, I believe, and South Africa. And where are we going with this? This is, for us, is to make closer the content in Africa. Means, if you can see the little diagram we have, the latency is 150 milliseconds. If 2 customers or 2 end customers want to connect to each other. For example, if someone wants to Skype with another friend, it will take him 150 milliseconds to open that page. If we have an IXP in Djibouti, for example, it's going to take it 15 to 30 milliseconds, I mean. So that's where we're going. And we believe that the strategic position of Djibouti won't benefit only Djibouti, but East African countries and the East African consumers in terms of internet. And that's the way we're going. And I think I've been told how to go faster, so I'll finish here. Thank you.